According to the traditional and official narrative about Black American ancestry, we have been told that millions of enslaved Africans were brought to North America. However, this narrative has often been accepted without deeper scrutiny. The evolving linguistic landscape has also played a key role in shaping perceptions. Terms like Negro have become synonymous with African, predominantly in contemporary contexts, a shift that warrants critical examination. According to the Transatlantic Slave Trade Database, approximately 12.5 million Africans were forcibly taken to the Americas between the 16th and 19th centuries, with about 10.7 million surviving the harrowing Middle Passage. However, when we view colonial America specifically, we see a different narrative according to the numbers. The United States officially outlawed the importation of enslaved individuals in general in 1808. Notably, less than 500,000 Africans were brought to what is now the United States of America. Specifically, of the 10.7 million Africans who survived the transatlantic journey, only about 388,000 were directly shipped to North America. However, between 1790 and 1860, the enslaved population in the United States surged from approximately 697,000 to 3.95 million, a growth rate that raises questions about the sole attribution to natural increases. According to historian Andreas Resendez, it is estimated that between 2.5 and 5 billion indigenous people were enslaved in the Americas from the 15th through the 19th centuries. Based on the combined research of Andreas Resendez and Linford Fisher, as well as historical patterns of indigenous enslavement, we can logically approximate the number of indigenous people enslaved in North America from 1492 to 1900. Resendez estimates between 147,000 and 340,000 enslaved indigenous people in North America, excluding Mexico, primarily the United States and Canada. Fisher estimates 2.5 to 5.5 million indigenous people enslaved across the entire Americas. Since Mexico and the Caribbean accounted for millions of enslaved indigenous people under Spanish rule, we must determine a reasonable proportion for North America. Spanish territories included hundreds of thousands of indigenous people who were enslaved in northern Mexico and the American Southwest alone, primarily through the encomienda system, raiding networks, and debt peonage. Resendez' estimate of 147,000 to 340,000 likely undercuts the full extent of indigenous enslavement in Spanish-controlled areas. Tens of thousands of Native Americans were enslaved in British North America, especially the Carolinas, New England, and Virginia, and exported to the Caribbean. South Carolina alone exported between 24,000 and 51,000 American Indians from 1670 to 1715. French Canada and Louisiana had at least 2,000 to 3,000 documented indigenous slaves. But there's a probability that it was much more rampant because of this being unrecorded through household slavery. Given the lack of complete records, and based on the proportions of indigenous enslavement in Spanish, British, and French regions, a reasonable estimate would be between 2 million to 5 million. On the low estimate, that would be 2 million indigenous enslaved in North America, including those exported. And on the high estimate, that is 5 million indigenous enslaved in North America, aligning with Fisher's upper range for all of the Americas in general. A logical estimate would place the total number of indigenous people enslaved in North America, including those trafficked to the Caribbean, between 2.5 million and 3.5 million individuals. This accounts for direct enslavement, forced labor systems, indigenous people classified under different legal terms, but effectively treated as enslaved. This also means that indigenous slavery in North America was likely on the same scale as the transatlantic slave trade within the region, but it has been historically overlooked due to underreporting, classification issues, and of course, legal loopholes. In fact, if we were to compare these figures, the total enslaved population in North America, which peaked at 3.95 million in 1860, we could determine significant ratios. If we were only to focus on the 388,000 Africans directly shipped to North America, the ratios become skewed in favor of a rampant indigenous enslaved system. Using the low estimate of 2.5 million indigenous to the 388,000 Africans, it becomes a 6.5 to 1 ratio. Using a high estimate of 3.5 million indigenous to 388,000 Africans, it becomes 9 to 1 ratio. These comparisons highlight that indigenous slavery was not only widespread, but likely rivaled or even exceeded the initial numbers of enslaved Africans in North America. The drastic increase in the enslaved populations between 1790 and 1860, from the 697,000 to 3.95 million, suggests that natural growth alone cannot explain the demographic shift. Reclassification, assimilation, and forced absorption of indigenous populations into the enslaved category likely played a significant role in shaping the present-day Black American population. These comparisons suggest that indigenous slavery, though often overshadowed in mainstream narratives, played a substantial role in early labor systems in North America. The dramatic increase in the enslaved population between 1790 and 1860 likely involved not only natural reproduction, but also the absorption of the indigenous population into the enslaved population. Additionally, the presence of indigenous Moors from Europe contribute to the complex mosaic of blood and ancestry that Black Americans carry. This is particularly true in the southeastern United States, where many Black Americans today carry the lineages of Moorish European indentured servants, indigenous American Negroes, and populations from the trans-Saharan slave trade, trans-Pacific slave trade, and transatlantic African and Asiatic slave trades. This hidden history challenges conventional narratives and demands a deeper exploration of how indigenous, African, and European lineages interwoven to form the ancestral heritage of Black Americans today.